Hello, everyone. Welcome to worship today. I'm so glad that you're able to be with us. My name is Pam Wilbur, and I recently joined the Calvary staff as the Worship Experience Director. I've been attending Calvary for over 20 years, first with my parents who had a cabin in the area, and 6 years ago, my husband Russ and I moved to our family lake home on Lake Latoka. In my role, I work behind the scenes, managing all the volunteers needed to run sound, lights, screens, and video. I also work with the pastors and worship leaders, putting all the pieces together to ensure that worship runs smoothly each and every week. I'm so excited to put my gifts and experience to work for our church family. I joined the Calvary staff because I want to make a difference, connect with people, and help fulfill Calvary's mission to lead all people to a lifelong faith in Jesus Christ. Here's how you can join me in fulfilling Calvary's mission. We're getting ramped up for a big fall of kid and student programming. To get your son, daughter, grandson, or granddaughter signed up, head out to our website, calvaryalex.org, and hit the button that says Kid and Student Programming. We can't wait to welcome your kids and their friends. As always, it's totally free and totally fun. Register today. In 3 weeks, on Labor Day weekend, we hold our last Calvary at the Lake service for the season. The following week, we invite you to join us for our new weekly in-person worship schedule. On Sunday mornings, we will hold 2 services at the church, a traditional service in the sanctuary at 8:30 and a modern service at 10:30 in the worship center. On Wednesdays, beginning September 14th, we'll hold a modern service at 6:30 every Wednesday evening, with a pizza meal served prior to the service. The fall is a great time to get involved at Calvary. We're holding a fall volunteer rally on Monday, August 29th. There are opportunities to lead adults, connect groups, serve as an usher or greeter, or I could use your help on one of our worship tech teams. There are opportunities to lead groups of kids or students, help organize service opportunities, share your musical gifts, and more. Join us for our Fall Volunteer Rally on Monday, August 29th. Sign up at our website today. Once a year, we offer an opportunity for adults to be baptized or to reaffirm the promises of their baptism. This year, we'll celebrate adult baptisms next Sunday on August 21st after worship. If you are interested, head out to calvaryalex.org/baptism or give us a call in the church office. As we get ready to worship, if you're looking for a little daily inspiration, like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, or subscribe to Calvary on YouTube. Today, Angie is wrapping up our worship series, Make Waves. We're going to talk about how Jesus came into this world and made a whole lot of waves with God's love. Isn't that what we need these days? Amid all the ugly politics, unrest in the world, and the mean-spiritedness in the media today, we could all use a little more love. Here's our hope. We hope as you worship today, you will experience the love of Jesus, a love that's unconditional, never-ending, and unbelievable. Friends, know that whoever you are, wherever you've been, and whatever your life looks like, nothing will ever separate you from the love of God that is in Jesus. Thanks again for joining us. Now let's worship.
When I was growing up, I had the great privilege of having a mom who chose to stay at home with me and my siblings. My mom, she used to work as an x-ray technician, and she gave up that career when I was born. And then after that, my 3 siblings that came after me. We moved a lot when I was a child because of my dad's job. And people always ask me if my dad had a military career that made me move all the time. And I always joke and say, no, it was a different shade of green. It was John Deere green. So we moved all the time. And my mom, she stayed home with the four of us. And in all those years, she really supported us in our lives. And she supported my dad in his career. And she was this really great mom. Can you imagine how busy it was to move about every other year, having four kids within 7 years? I honestly don't think that my mom had time for anything else in her entire life. But one by one, we all grew up. We all grew up safe and secure, and then we went off onto our own. And my mom, she would always say to me, she said, you know what? Letting go is harder than giving birth. And as someone who has given birth 4 times and let go of now 2 adult children, I agree with her entirely that letting go is harder than giving birth. I remember the day that my mom, she dropped off my youngest sister, Emily, to college, and she moved all her stuff in all day, and she got her all settled, bought the extra things that she needed, and then she hugged and said goodbye to Emily. And as they were driving back home, my dad called me, and he said, hey, I need to let you know that your mom and I are on our way to the hospital. Your mom is experiencing some chest pains, probably because she has been moving your sister out all day. And I sat at home and I was praying and praying for my mom, waiting to hear news from my dad. And my daddy called about 4 hours later and he said, you know what, Ange, your heart is good. Your mom was just having a panic attack. And when I talked to my mom later, she said to me, she said, I just don't know who I am if I'm not your mom. Who am I if I am not parenting kids in my house all the time? You see, in that moment, my mom felt like she lost her purpose. Anyone else ever felt that way? Or another time in your life, like you wonder what on earth it is that you were supposed to be doing. And you wonder how the heck you're going to figure out what that thing is. Okay, another story. I want to introduce you to somebody. This guy, his name is Stephen. And Stephen is here with Macy Stender, one of our Calvary college students in Ghana, where we visited this June. Now, Stephen, he's kind of this guy who's like a do-it-all helper kind of guy. And he works for our mission partner, GlobeServe, in Ghana, West Africa. And when the Calvary mission team was there, Stephen, he would just do all the things that we needed. He would carry our bags. He would load them into the bus. When we were given the gift of a goat, he was the person who was responsible for tying that goat up to the top of the bus and strap it down so it wouldn't go anywhere. Stephen, he would carry our backpacks. He would go get us water if we needed water, whatever it took to be with this group on the team. Whatever we needed, we knew that Stephen was the person to provide it for us. Stephen, he's the kind of guy who smiles with his whole face and his eyes are so bright. He's got this excitement and joy as part of who he is all the time. And then he would humbly choose the worst seat on the bus. He'd wait till everyone was in and seated. And sometimes Stephen, he would be standing if there were no more room on the bus. And one day after we had finished a long day of serving, Stephen came up to me after dinner and he said to me, Pastor Angie, I would love if I could tell your group my story the next morning. And I said, of course, pal, we would love to hear your story, Stephen. We can't wait. My friends, we are in the last week of our worship series called Make Waves. These past couple of weeks, we've been talking about in church and in vacation Bible school, how God has a purpose for each and every one of us. And the purpose is to make a difference in the world. Now, one of my neighbors has a wake boat, and I didn't even know that these things existed before I moved here to Minnesota. I'm sure you guys have all seen these great big huge boats that kind of sink down, or they have something that sinks down or something, and it pushes people through the water so that people can surf behind them. And the thing is that these lake boats, even if they are in the middle of the lake and there are people surfing on them, those waves, they're going to make it all the way to shore, crashing down, moving things if we're not careful. These wake boats, even if they are way out there, they still have a ripple effect. What happens out in the middle of the lake affects everyone that is on the shore. And you guys have seen this at a football game where people do the wave, where they go around in the big circles and they go, woo, and they wave their hands all the way around. The rave, it usually starts with one person, but then before you know it, an entire stadium is doing it. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about this ripple effect. You know, when you toss a stone into water and you see the rings go from it and they continue on and on and on. And when we think about this, how do we think about this when it applies to our purpose in life? This thing that God has created us to do, this ripple effect. Does everyone have one? And how do I find that significance in my life? So I want to ask the question today, how do I make a difference? How does what I do and what I spend time on create a ripple effect in the world? Jesus in John 13, he simplifies how we do this. He simplifies this by saying, I give you a new commandment, that just as you love one another, just as I have loved you, you should also love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another. If you're going to learn one thing from watching church here today, it's this. You have one job, and this job is love. That's it. Sermon over. Oh my gosh, we can be done. But it's not really that easy, is it? Love, it's this really hard thing for us to do. It's really hard for us to love other people, and sometimes it's really hard for us to love ourselves. Now, I think that there are a couple of reasons why we struggle to love in our world. Number one, I think if we're honest, we struggle to love ourselves. Instead of loving ourselves, so many of us find ourselves judging ourselves. We buy into the lie that there's something that we need to do in order to be worthy of love, and something we have to earn in order to be worthy of belonging. Like we have to lose those pounds or pull that stuff together or get that promotion or get that date. But here is the real truth of it. Here is what Jesus teaches us, that you are worthy of love right now, not in some future state that you have imagined, but you are loved right here and right now. The second reason we struggle is this. We struggle to receive love. My friends, you are worthy of the love that you give to others. You know, in airplanes, how they always say you have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you go and assist others. It's like so many of us actually believe that those other people are more worthy of oxygen than we are. So we give out all of our oxygen. We give out all of our love, but we find ourselves empty and exhausted. We find ourselves burdened and burned out. My friends, you are worthy of the love that you give to others. And the third reason that we struggle is that we struggle to notice. We struggle to notice where other people need love. And this one is tough. It's tough because it's hard for us to notice the suffering of others, because what it does is it triggers in all the feelings of the places where we have been suffering or struggling, the places where we are lonely or lost. It's just easier for us to keep our heads down and to numb ourselves by scrolling on our phone or by binge watching Netflix. And so we don't look up. We don't see. We maybe don't want to see what's going on in the world, what's going on in our community, what's going on in our family, what's going on in our marriage. Think about it. How many times have you driven past the homeless man on the side of the street and instead you just looked around like they weren't there, even if you didn't actually have something to give? We hesitate to see each other's humanity. Or how many times have we just walked past our family member, watching them scroll through YouTube or go into the other room, and instead of engaging them, because we just don't really know what to say or what to do, and we fear that they might reject us, so we just struggle to notice. And as a result of these struggles, we don't take a risk. We don't make waves. We keep our heads down and avoid seeing other people and their pain and their hurts. And we avoid loving them. We don't live into the abundant life that God has called each and every one of us to. Author and theologian C.S. Lewis, he writes it like this. He says, "To love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully around with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable, because to love is to be vulnerable. And my friends, this is exactly why Jesus came into this world in the first place, to get us out of our own neuroses and into the good that God has created each and every one of us for, to free us from the coffins of our own selfishness, to free us from our own self-judgment and to care for ourselves well, to free us from fear and shame so that we can enter into each day knowing that God has got us, God has got our back again and again and again, so we can be free to take risks, so we can be free to make waves, so we can be free to jump in the deep end on behalf of other people, so that we can love that is big and beautiful and complicated and vulnerable, love that is messy and love that might hurt. But we've let God already handle the fear that it might hurt. God frees us so that we can love. Romans 8 says it this way, "What then shall we say in response to these things? If God is for us, then who can be against us? God, who did not spare his own son, but gave him up for us all, how he will not also, along with him, graciously give us all things?" So here's the big theological truth. God is for you so that you can be for them. God is for you so that you can go and love them, so that you can be for them. Guys, God has freed you so that you get to go free other people. How very cool is that? How awesome and amazing of a purpose is that for this life? Jesus expands this further in the book of Luke, where he talks about what this kind of love looks like. He says, on one occasion, an expert in the law, a lawyer, stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" And he answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "Well, you've answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But the lawyer, he wanted to justify himself. And so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" All right, I want to unpack this for us just a little bit today. This expert in the law, he is trying to be right. He is trying to be righteous in his own way. He's trying to justify what he knows. And so Jesus, being who Jesus is, Jesus challenges him. And Jesus goes on and says this, "A man was going from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place where he saw him, passed by on the other side." I want to take a look at this part for just a second. Jesus sets this scene for us. He talks about this road from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, this road back in that day was called this, wait for it, the Bloody Pass. Yeah, that's a terrible name. It's this name known for danger, known for mugging, and known for violence. And it was this hard road with a steep elevation gain. And this man, he comes along and he's beaten and he's robbed and he's left there for dead. And by chance, a holy man, a pastor comes by, but he looks at him and he passes by on the other side. And I mean, who knows why this man doesn't stop? The Bible doesn't expand it further. Maybe it's because he's too busy worrying about his own church or too busy trying to please his people to be bothered by this beaten man. Or maybe he's fearful. He's fearful that he too might get mugged here on the Bloody Pass, that his life might be at risk. And so, that might get in the way of his very important work. So he passes by. But then another person comes along, a Levite, another holy man. And it's the same story. He passes by too. But Jesus continues. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. "Look after him," he said, "and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you may have." So finally another person passes, and it's a stranger. It's a person of a different faith, a different background, a different political party, a different ideology, a different point of view. And this person, the Samaritan, is the person who is moved with compassion. You see, this person, He's willing to see the beaten man and not look away. He's willing to see him as a fellow human being. He's willing to see his hurts and his pains. He's willing to see him as a person who is worthy. He's willing to see him as another human just like himself. But here's the thing, this Samaritan, he doesn't stop there. He does something about it. Instead, this Samaritan, he takes a risk. He makes waves. He takes action to ensure that this stranger is taken care of. So the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he calls this a kind of dangerous unselfishness. I just love that, don't you? Dangerous unselfishness in his reflection on this parable. And in Dr. King's final sermon, the night before his assassination, he says this about it. And so the first question that the priest asked and the first question that the Levi asked was, if I stop to help this man, what will happen to me? But the Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? What will happen to him? Friends, if we look outside of ourselves, what will happen to them? To all those who are not here, all those who have yet to experience the love of Jesus, to the least, the lost, the last, and the lowest, our friends and our family members, our neighbors who are hurting, what will happen to them? What will happen to them, those people who are beaten up by this world and sadly maybe sometimes beaten up by the church? Those people who are convinced and have bought into the lie that they are unlovable or abandoned or too bruised for anyone to care. What if we don't do the one thing? What if we don't love? What will happen to them? Because let's be honest, being human is hard. It's hard parenting toddlers. It's hard parenting teens. It's hard finding friends or finding yourself. It's hard watching your beloved's memory decline or your bank account decline. It's hard understanding why they did what they did. It's hard knowing if you're on the right path or knowing that you're not on the right path, but you're not sure how to course correct. It's hard overcoming addiction. It's hard overcoming anxiety. It's hard grieving the loss of your loved one, and it's hard grieving the loss of your dreams. Being human is hard. It's hard for all of us. It is so hard that God developed a strategy in order to help us get through the hard, to help us get through the pain and the brokenness, the bruises and the frustrations of the hard roads of this life, those Jerusalem to Jericho moments of this life. My friends, here's the truth. You are God's strategy. Why I care about them? Because they're just like us. They are in need of supportive community. They're in need of kindness. They're in need of compassion. They're in need of love. And they're in need of a Savior. If they don't hear it from us, what will happen to them? As my mom tried to figure out the next chapter of her life and what that looked like, she took a class at her church trying to uncover what her new purpose was beyond parenting us 4 kids. And she took this class and it talked all about water insecurity. My mom, in that class, she learned this statistic that 2/3 of the world's population experience severe water scarcity for at least 1 month out of a whole year. That's over 5 billion people that spend at least a month of their lives in a year without water, something that we all need every single day. And this statistic, it bothered my mom. It kind of got in her gut and did something to her, and it bothered her. And so she tried to imagine what on earth could a mom do about this water insecurity problem. And so she had this idea. At this time, she did some crafts. She made these stained glass hearts, little hearts that kind of look like this. And so she thought, what if I make 100 of these hearts and then I sell them on Valentine's weekend and then I donate all the proceeds from these little hearts to try and provide a well for some water for one community. So she went to work. She went to work soldering heart after heart after heart for a whole year. And then on Valentine's Day weekend, she set up a booth at her church and she called her project Hearts for Water. And I helped my mom at her little table there in the commons area of the church. And she was so worried. She was so worried that no one would come and purchase a heart, that they would look at her craft and they would just see the flaws, the places where the solder lines just didn't line up correctly. And as soon as church got out, it took about 10 minutes. And boom, all of the hearts were gone. And boom, my mom, she donated 1 well. And this kept going for a couple of years, but eventually cancer entered into my mom's life, and her high school friends saw her passion for making sure people had water, and so they took on Hearts for Water themselves. And now, today, I can proudly tell you that over 40 wells have been drilled and installed in places in the world where those communities experience water scarcity. You see, she created a ripple effect, doing something that she loved for other people. This ripple effect that proves that God doesn't add, God multiplies. And in Ghana, after we got all the bags ready and we were getting ready for another day to go visit another village to distribute mosquito nets, Stephen kindly and faithfully, after loading all of these things into the bus, he looked at me and I said, okay, I'd love to hear your story. Stephen, he stood up in kind of a sweet, shy sort of way, and he said to the group, he said, I want to tell you that I was born in a village outside of Adadome in a very poor family. And when I was a kid, a group like yours came to my village to teach us about the love of Jesus and about malaria. And at the end of that day, after I listened to all their words, they handed me a mosquito net to protect me from malaria. And then he said something. He said, this mosquito net was the first thing that I ever had that was all mine. And he thought, if they can love me enough to come all the way to Ghana to give me this mosquito net, then I need to know more about this Jesus. And now here we are 10 years later, and I'm here passing these mosquito nets out with you in all of these other villages. My friends, it created a ripple effect. God is for you so that you can be for them. God loves you so much that God sent God's Son just to show you how valued and worthy you are. God sent God's Son to free you from your shame and your mistakes of your past. God sent God's Son so you could tangibly feel it and experience it. God sent God's Son so that we can learn how to love God and to love ourselves and to love other people. So friends, let's make waves. These waves of love over our families, these waves of love over our community, these waves of love over our world. Because if we don't, what will happen to them? It's only love that dismantles our hate. It's only love that lights up the darkness in our world. It's only love that rebuilds broken relationships. It's only love that makes us feel whole again. It's only love that causes wars to cease or bridges division. It's only love that keeps us from judging each other and ourselves. It's only love that keeps us from throwing up our hands at the end of the day and quitting. It's only love that makes us try again and again, day after day after day. It is only love that heals this broken world. My friends, it's love. And what do we do with it? Well, you are God's strategy. So go in love. Amen.
But he brought me in, oh his love for me, oh his love for me.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us for worship today. Please join us in praying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining us for worship. I really want to encourage you to think about what small thing you could do that God could multiply, what ripple effect you could have on your family or your community or maybe the whole world. I appreciate that you're here so much. I want to tell you about how you can join Calvary's email list. You can go on our website at calvaryalex.org and just click on the button that says, I want to sign up for emails. Just once a week, we send out an email that tells you about all the things that God is doing through Calvary. Things coming up like Backpack Attack or fall registration for kids programming. We want to make sure that you're a part of it. As we close our time together, we're going to close with a time of generosity. Guys, thank you so much for creating that ripple effect through our community through your gifts. There are 4 ways that you can give, and they are on your screen. The first is that you can go to that website, calvaryalex.org, and click on the button that says Give. The second is you can try Venmo. Our Venmo handle is on your screen. You can send us a gift that way. The third is that you can write a check and mail it into the church at 605 Douglas Street, Alexandria, Minnesota, 56308. Or the fourth is that you can call the number that's on your screen and we'll help you figure it all out. My friends, go and love. Have a good day.